Welcome to New Realities. I'm Alan Steinfeld, and I have some very special guests on today to talk about the current situation and to dialogue about what this really means. I'm talking to my friends, Dr. Hurtak, Dr. JJ Hurtak, Dr. Desiree Hurtak. They are at their bunker in Sedona, Arizona. No, they're in their office there, and we have not seen times like this. It's as if the world has suddenly gotten smaller in a way. What's your take on it? JJ, what's your take? You've been around a while, and what are the forces of nature really trying to tell us here?
Well, back 33 years ago, I was in South Africa, the Zulu shaman Credo Mutwa. We were doing a documentary, later became known as The Voice of Africa. And we were talking at that time about problems of Africa, social disease, the AIDS epidemic, overpopulation, the lack of food sources. And Credo, the Zulu shaman, said, and I agree with him, that Mother Nature has a way of correcting overpopulation. According to the mythology of the indigenous people throughout the world, this has been a general overview that every so often we have these pandemics or these situations that border on quote unquote mass extinction of species. Upwards of 70 to 75% are destroyed if the social environment or the planetary environment becomes out of balance. And so Credo felt at that time that what we had to fear in the 21st century was the coming of viruses and great epidemics. In my experience, some years before that, in 1973, in a book I wrote called The Keys of Enoch, I state in key 307 that there would be plagues and food shortages that we would be facing in the first part of the 21st century because of what we will call diminishing returns on our non-renewable resources. So to make it very simple, we are facing a situation that's rather unusual, but not that unusual, given the social and the theological perspectives of all major world cultures. Every so often something like this happens, but we have to take an upward approach. And that's where social psychology, that's where futurism, that's where our work together at the Academy of Future Science plays a very important role, because the real story is a percentage of people will always survive and life will go on. And the game is not to be too pessimistic, where self-analysis breeds self-paralysis, where society shuts down and everybody gives up out of social panic and fear that's generally perpetrated by those who have social and economic interests of the few as opposed to the many.
Right, and as Dr. Tech mentioned, this has happened before, like in 1918 with the Spanish flu. I know many people are talking about it. And I think it's important to understand about viruses because, it's something we don't really know about. We talk about the flu, but it's very similar to that. But this is actually almost very similar to the MERS and the SARS. But this is, of course, even more contagious and now going all the way around the world with everybody. And that's, of course, the most difficult problem. But the vaccines that they're now working on, that one company, Moderna, who actually is already in trials, which I think is incredible, testing this, is because they've actually worked with what's called mRNA viruses. This is not DNA like we're used to. There's DNA and RNA in our body, but these are RNA, and they're kind of experts on this. So they kind of did an offshoot of the SARS vaccine, saying that it's very, very similar to it, and they're hoping that this would be something that can be passed around. We'll still say by summer, not anything earlier, but at least it's moving forward.
Yeah, no, thank you. I wanted to get a little bit away from the science and more toward the consciousness level. On some ways, the world has been brought together. Everyone, every country, every person around the world has the same thought about something so small affecting something so large. And Desiree, as an environmentalist, possibly that the word in Chinese for crisis means danger and opportunity. So what do you feel is the opportunity here for us?
Well, Alan, I know from our talks together before the show that you're very much into the fact that it's showing this unity of family. And of course, that's our work right now this year. Dr. Jack's writing a book on the family, like our connection to each other. And this is really showing it. And even the fact of how countries are managing this all over the globe, the fact is you can just go out and live your normal life, and you may not be, symptomatic. In fact, the majority of people getting the coronavirus would be asymptomatic, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't share that with others. And that means with their older parents or with other situations of people that have bronchial infections on a normal basis, asthma, other things like that. So, the whole lockdown, as one can say, and we're partly from the Bay Area, which at this point is, a lockdown, basically is because we're there to help one another. We're acknowledging the fact that all of us are in this together, and we can play a role in making it less so. And yes, people have talked about, balancing the curve and not infecting or having problems with the healthcare system and all this and that. But ultimately, it does show a community spirit, community working together.
Let me ask JJ about the oneness of consciousness as you're writing this book about the family. And of course, we're all one human family. How can we take that sense of oneness beyond this crisis, whenever that will be, into a new vision of humanity?
We are not simply one singularity. We're not simply an isolated individual. We are a collective individual waking up to the fact that we're all interconnected, we're interdependent, and the social fabric of survival requires that the family stays together or disintegrates. So all throughout social history, movements of thought, and I've studied extensively the great traditions of the Middle East, Africa, and Asia, all this points to the fact that even with severe pandemics of the past, those who have survived have had a higher psychology of knowing the resources of inner consciousness. We will call them the spiritual gifts of a higher vision.
Well, what exactly, can you describe that? Because everyone wants to go to another level. What do we need to do to gain that access to the higher vision?
Well, I would say right now we're doing it in the sense that, people are staying home and trying to not spread this around. Because many people could say, oh, I don't care. And it probably wouldn't affect the majority of the people who would get this virus. But the fact that they are concerned about others is what I'm saying. That puts an energy out there that we are trying to help one another. And this is a real sense of brotherhood and sisterhood. I don't think you can deny what's taking place and what we're kind of experiencing on a spiritual level from all of this. But we would just say a few other words on this. We are concerned with the fact of having a lot of fear within people, and that should be mitigated. We should put the word and the idea of faith, not fear, as a major scenario. So we put the fact that, you are guided, you're being helped, you're being watched on higher levels.
In short, faith has to trump fear. Pardon the expression trump. But faith, higher awareness, has to be able to override these economic, medical, and social discontinuities. And that this is the problem in the United States. We're facing not just one problem, but several problems of the economic market based in China, the flu triggering mechanisms coming out of China, and also the lack of proper medical facilities to give us the proper feedback. And so we have to see in all nakedness, we still have our consciousness of love, light, and brilliance. And that brilliance was historically seen as the higher self, the over-self, the self that's connected with the divine source. It's that ability to take the higher path in the disturbing news that we now face that will allow for the continuity of the design of the collective consciousness. And that is the answer to your question. It is to evoke the energy of light or positive thinking with the collective consciousness, to which enough good minds and good energies come together to open up a new window of possibility, a new doorway of experience.
And that gets down to each one of us. I think it's extremely important. And I think it's important that we kind of see ourselves as energy bodies of light and protect ourselves on a certain level. But it also gets down to those working in the healthcare industries and even in the pharmaceutical industries. I know many people don't like that word, but they're the ones that are working to try to come up with solutions for humanity.
We've been living, I think, on an unsustainable lifestyle. And, you know, just with factories shutting down in China, the world, the atmosphere is cleaner, the less jet flights, the less people traveling. It's like we are purging an old way, and maybe the world was not sustainable the way it was, and this is a reset. What do you think about that?
Well, I don't think it's going to last that long, but I think it's the action of us right now. I just want to say a word. I know you don't want too much science, but I think it's important that people...
No, I like science. I just wanted to get more conscious because everyone's talking about science, but I want to hear your science, of course.
Well, I just want to say a little bit in terms of the fact that a virus continually mutates, and I think that's very important. So if we're going to put energy out, and we often do prayers, and I know we'll do a little bit at the end for prayer for the planet, but that one of the things you can think about is already the strain, it seems, and this is controversial, that from the coronavirus there's been an S strain and an L strain, and so that there's been a split already. And every time, you know, something duplicates, like this particular virus duplicates, it actually is not using DNA that has so much information stored. So it actually uses RNA, and that RNA tends to have mistakes on it that are never then replaced and fixed. Now that can be a positive thing because you can get strains that are less virulent and also, you know, less deadly, or it can be a negative thing because it can mutate into things that are more powerful for people. So I think the important thing when we do come together with a meditation or thinking about it, that we seek to neutralize any kind of mutation in the negative direction and literally see the RNA in this small little virus going into something that no longer will hurt humanity or even anything on this planet.
Well, so what was that split? Did they analyze the L versus the S split?
Well, you know, there's something like 30,000 different, we'll say, nucleobases in the coronavirus, and there was only just a few that were splitting. But this is what happens with the flu each year. Now, there's different varieties of flu that, you know, come around every year, but it keeps mutating, and so that's why there's always like a new vaccine and a new this and a new that, and they're not sure if they get it right. It's a similar process, and not the same thing. It's not a flu virus per se, more like the SARS, but the idea that it constantly mutates. So we can use that energy, I think, to neutralize it, to move it into something that's less contagious. The worst thing of this is it's so contagious, and that's why we're having this. You know, something can be just as deadly, but not as contagious. Wow. And so you have both deadly for older people, and you also have the contagion. And these are the two factors that, if one is going to look at this, we need to try to understand and move away from.
Well, JJ, I want to ask you, I mean, I know you had something to say there, but as a visionary, what will be the shift in this planet and civilization and consciousness on the other end of this? I mean, do we have to come? What do you feel is this?
Well, we're being forced to find that we have more things in common, irrespective of ethnic background and religious background, than we think in terms of a new social psychology of working together to see the use of positive energy across the board.
I think you're hitting an important point, the fact that this is it's a different time on the planet. In a sense, it's a sacred time. It's a time where we can all take a break from the world, and in a sense, like the Sabbath is, or holidays, or it's a chance for all of us to take a reset, a new look at ourselves and how we're living. I think it is a moment of sacredness planetarily, and maybe every year we should all stop for 2 weeks and stay in and reset. I think we're being called on to be different people.
Right, I concur with you, and of course we know you're also an evolutionary leader as we are, and one thing that we've had to watch is the trend towards the media of negativity, and the promotion of a culture of death as opposed to a culture of light, L-I-G-H-T. I put down a few ideas here that goes with the new social psychology. We would call it a spiritual metaphysics that will allow us to daily prime ourselves with the social dynamics of raising our consciousness with a new idea of breathing lights, taking time in short amounts, in isolation or in collective work, to feel the information of light and positive movement. This will allow our alignment to be with those also like ourselves who will seek higher positive solutions as opposed to simply being conduits for the same negative information again and again and again. So in the movement towards social rearmament, towards social awakening to the new self, the higher self, we have balance that comes to a new type of behavioral pattern that's rooted in the consciousness of life. And that consciousness of life, we feel in our work at the Academy for Future Science, is the use of the names of God, the use of divine expressions, the use of sacred mantras, be it in Sanskrit or Hebrew or Greek or whatever language. All great civilizations have had to go through these lower periods of renewal and regeneration, and the key trigger we have found historically are the higher documents, the sutra texts, are higher scriptures that speak of breathing the light, being the light, and transforming through the light. So this is a great opportunity for new social leadership through the world to become conduits of light and replace those factories of mischief and negative thoughts.
And if I could add, for those of the Christian ideas, this is really a time to bring in the gifts and the power of the Holy Spirit. And I think that that can really heal. I mean, we've always known that there's healing power in this. I often say, look at Mother Teresa. She didn't really, go into the areas of color and said, oh, well, I'll wait till it's better, I'll go later. I mean, I'm not telling people to go into the public areas. I'm just saying we have that ability, even a small part, to be able to be the light, bring in the divine energy. And as you were saying, Alan, I think it is a time of quietude, which is important, to go within ourselves and really have that peacefulness, not to be in anger. Turn off the TVs for a while to find out what's going on. Just turn it off and go into that quietude. And also to be able to go with the flow of energy. Because don't forget, we're all doing something for each other when we're doing this right now.
Let us be the avant-garde of life.
Mm-hmm.
Let us be the avant-garde of new social upliftment in this time of great change in the medical field. Let us be the way showers to a whole new spirituality and cosmology of life, not only on Earth, but life that's connected with what we believe to be a living universe that is benign.
Let me ask you from
come and go, but we can strive for a greater blueprint of life.
I want to ask you about that from a Kabbalistic point of view. On the tree of life, the lowest level is Malkut, the kingdom. The upper is Keter. What does Keter mean? It means like.
Let me start with that. And a Keter is literally the crown, but it comes only after you've gone through.
The crown is what the virus is about. Corona is the crown. So we're going from a next level of, on the tree of life, they build on each other. So what was once Keter now becomes Malkut for the next level of the tree. So I think
that's right.
This crown is asking us to go to the next level.
Right, and so the Malkut is on the bottom rung, we'll say, of the tree of life, but the whole intention, as we were just saying, is to really raise it up so it becomes the next. We don't think there's only one tree of life. We're one tree of life right here, but then there's other aspects of that. And so as we grow, as we activate that energy, we go into the next level of consciousness, and the kingdom itself gets raised up.
When we were studying years ago at the Academy for Parapsychology and Medicine with astronaut Mitchell, et cetera, we found that there was in the crown a corona discharge, a biophotonic energy, which allows certain swamis to sit in a icy environment and still maintain high thermal heat throughout their body.
So we talk about the corona as being the energy that also comes off of our bodies.
So we must shift the mirror around and recognize that corona enhancement, corona discharge of light that we invoke through our body, flowing through our body, is part of the solution. We're not to be in a negative passive state where we can't do anything. We are here to go beyond social distancing. We are going to go into social spirituality, receiving the greater light, pulsating the greater light through our body, through energy mantrams, and then as beacons of light and courage, project that throughout the world to a greater vitality signal to people throughout the world. And in so doing, we realize the collective consciousness that's so important in all of the great traditions of the mystical medical tradition.
Well, would you say the Kether, the crown, is encompassing the planet to take people to this awakening?
Yes, Willis Harman at Stanford Research Institute wrote a book called The Global Mind. And if we activate the crown with positive thinking, positive mantras, sacred melodies,
and also visualizations,
then we become the global mind that's now re-energizing itself and going beyond this lower process of negative situations that border on pandemics. In fact, we've written several books on spiritual linguistics entitled The Sacred Names of God. If you go to our website, keysofenoch.org, you can order these, and these books are written in 12 different languages. So whether you want to use the Hebrew or the Aramaic or the Sanskrit, for that matter, any of the modern European languages, you can find a common basis of how vitality must be activated through the 7 seals or chakras of the human body. From head to heel, the crown, the Kether, or corona, becomes a living beacon of light. And that's the great blessing that we can learn from this challenge we're all facing throughout the world. We can become one global beacon of light.
I think that is what we're being called to do. Don't you? I mean, why else would this come upon us? So in a way, suddenly, I mean, and in a way, it's an initiation of a planetary consciousness. We are a global mind. We just never realized it before. And now we have an opportunity that one little town in China can affect the whole entire world. I mean,
it's certainly a time of global transformation and a global linkages. And so that's why it's important, even when we find that place of quietude or that meditative state, that we not only change our consciousness within us and our body, healing, giving our own immune system actually more empowerment, which is something you do. When you meditate, you're actually empowering your body also to heal itself. And so that's so important. You're bringing in the light energy from other realities. That's also important. But then, most importantly, we feel, is you're sending that energy out. And you can send it out to the planet. You can link to each other, to your family, to the globe. And that is a way of really dissipating. So even if it's not just you who's there in the pharmaceutical lab making the, we'll say the vaccine, for example, you can actually help by bringing in the energy that allows that person to see the right thing, to make the right choices, to move the energy out, or even just to heal others around the globe. We did this with violence and war in different places back even in the 70s, and we had amazing things that took place back then to send prayers out for the planet. And our motto tonight, I can say, is faith, not fear, prayer, not panic. So those are our 2 mottos, really, to remember that you can do something.
Let's do that now. I think, there's just so much that can be said. Everyone knows the situation. We have a hope for transformation on a planetary level, but the practical aspects is leading a meditation and prayer.
I think Dr. Hurtak had a few other points in terms of preparation for our final closing prayer.
Yes, go ahead, JJ.
In our new book on the Thou Shalt Be the Family, there are several themes that we want to invoke. One is that we find a place of quietude in order to recharge our body. And that place of quietude has to have a practice of daily renewal, self-reflection and meditation, so that we are on a roadmap that goes someplace from head to heel, from the Malkuth of this world to the Malkuth of the higher self, the higher world, the higher evolution. We have to understand that we are not simply dwellers on one little planet, one singularity. We are all connected with the cosmic intelligence. Next, we have to be able to reach out and recognize our global family does help and co-evolve. And in so doing, we visualize going beyond the barrier of traditional science into the metaphysical science. And here, our work with Elizabeth Rauscher in a book called Mind Dynamics shows how consciousness expansion can work and go beyond the laws of thermodynamics, that we can actually see over great distances with remote healing, remote visions, remote communication. We've got fantastic spiritual, psychological gifts and powers that are now making its, so we say, their availability through the great scientific minds.
Right, so I just want to qualify this because it was what also I was saying a moment ago, and that is the fact that we live in Silicon Valley, and we've talked to many scientists who feel inspired by some of the information to create inventions and innovations. So the idea is that we don't believe it always comes from my mind finding out things, that there's actually a greater consciousness field out there, and we're all part of that. So we can actually pull in the information we need. We can do it for ourselves, like, you know, if you don't feel right going into that food store today, or you don't feel right going into that restaurant today if it's still open, you know, then listen to that still small voice. And in other cases, you know, like I said, encourage the person who's trying to help humanity or the health worker, send an energy there so that she's protected or she's being able to be helpful. This all works. It works with this consciousness field that exists everywhere around the planet. And in that consciousness field is solutions to everything. In fact, it's part of the quantum field. And that quantum field has multiple possibilities. We just need to pull down and be part of and resonate with the right one.
So we'll take a couple of minutes to visualize the tree of life, the crown over our head of life, the Malkuth or kingdom there in our legs and our feet. Let us visualize a higher state of awareness developing and shedding light throughout our body that is omnidirectional, going out to all countries, to all parts of the world. Let us visualize the blue-green planet as a planetary orb that goes in the place of our mind, our face, and let us raise our vision with understanding and wisdom. We call this the Bina and the Hokmah, the understanding and the wisdom that converge when we realize that science and spirituality converge with a new vision of ourselves.
And so as we continue to see that vibration of the planet, I'd like to introduce the concept of gematria, which is a mathematical energy and a way of thinking about all life on the planet being an unfoldment of mathematics as well as light and consciousness energy. So gematria, and then Gaia, that of the planet. We put these words together as a type of mantra so that people can understand that there's a process, there's a rhythm, there's a unfoldment that takes place on the planet that we can be part of, and we can move that unfoldment to not the negative downward spiral of everyone's frustration, but into an upward spiral of solutions. And that's what we have to see. We have to see the solutions coming to this planet.
So I'm going to sing it, the mantra 7 times of the 7 chakras are seals that need to be opened fully with the light. Listen carefully. Gematria Gaia, Gematria Gaia, Gematria Gaia, Gematria Gaia, Gematria Gaia, Gematria Gaia, Gematria Gaia. Let the light involve every human, every resource that takes and uses the greater light for productive creations and co-creations. Let the light flow through us. Let us be beacons of light in the vast and awesome challenge that we face.
And let us, even while sitting in our bedrooms or our living rooms, see the energy even of that small virus that many of you have seen on television, see it being neutralized. You know, just as they said, soap and water and alcohol can kill it. Let's kill it also with the destruction of even the nucleobases so that it is no longer harmful to all of us. Let's see that mutation taking place. Let's see the wiping out of this virus, whether it's from vaccines or from consciousness or from whatever. Let's see the neutralization so that we become once again a family out and sharing and loving and caring with each other and hugging each other.
And every day, let all of us feel the sacred words or mantras on our lips, with golden light being discharged, being vocalized, being projected, being shared, with a happy smile, with a joyous understanding that we are co-participants in this great co-evolutionary upliftment. We are beacons of change. We are the avant-garde of light. We are the way showers to a positive future.
I was just going to say, let our crowns be open. Let the Keter, the top of our awareness, be full of golden light. Let it flow into us, transforming the DNA, awakening the divine potential, and let us evolve, because the earth is in its evolution and we are those beings of the earth. So let the golden light pour through our crowns, the corona, the energetic forces that surround us, that we may incorporate and evolve, transform, transmute, and come back into the oneness of humanity.
And see the energy not only over our heads like a pillar of light, but see it also coming and radiating off of our bodies and sending it around the world with the energies of peace.
Corona Ein Sof 7 times. Corona Ein Sof. 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 Corona Ein Sof.
So that means not seeing the virus, but seeing the light and seeing the crown and seeing it transformed into a greater energy of love, understanding, and a sharing that we all can be together without this anymore in our midst. Let us neutralize this for our own consciousness powers, and may peace prevail on earth and in the heavens.
One more chanting of Malkuth Keter as the transformation from the lowest level to the highest level, and then from the highest level becomes a new foundation for a higher level.
Malkuth
Keter. Malkuth Keter. Malkuth Keter. Malkuth Keter. Malkuth Keter. Malkuth Keter. Malkuth Keter. Malkuth Keter. Malkuth Keter. Malkuth Keter.
And I also just like to recognize the East and the West, because there's places in India, Singapore, all over the world that are having these problems. Let's do the Om Shanti Shanti Om, which is really that universal sound that we can send the energy out all over the world and send it as peace, no longer panic. Let's have the power of understanding of the heart going forward. So everyone who's watched this, I hope you found a little bit more of the peacefulness within yourself, giving you that extra time, as Alan also shared, to give yourself time and energy, get rid of the stress. Actually, use this as a time to get rid of the stress of daily life and go within yourself to the higher
People
power.
are having more stress, and now
I know, that's not what
we're
it should be.
giving them permission to actually have less stress and take time for themselves and reevaluate what's important.
And so when I say peace, it's not just peace for the planet. Yes, we all want peace in the Middle East and peace everywhere
It's
in the
inner
world,
peace.
but it's also the inner peace. So
Going to the highest level of the higher chakra, opening up that vibratory gateway, realizing your body is a musical instrument of the divine dance, and feeling as I vocalize these special expressions. Om Shanti 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 Om. Om Shanti 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 Om. Om Shanti 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 Om.
Om Shanti 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 Om. Om Shanti 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 Om. Om Shanti 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 Om. Om Shanti 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 Om. Om Shanti.
And so your whole biological clock is reset. Your whole dynamics of slumber and withdrawal are awakened to come into the foreground of higher experience. And then you connect with the piece of Enoch called the higher self, the higher overself. The higher intelligence links up with the human intelligence in a way that many will not accept until they look at the new scientific text that we're putting forth, such as mind dynamics, showing us that we are connected with the mind of the universe. And when we have that supernal connection, then there's a fusion of mind to mind, spirit to spirit, and the background energy spectrum changes. And we draw upon the light continually. And we are that 2% of positive thinkers continually, and that overcomes the negative programming that brings us down and destroys the lower chakra mechanisms of our body.
And so I hope everyone who's listened to this has actually been able to take a little bit of this within themselves. Alan, you know, we have great music that people are playing all over the place with these sacred names. But even if you don't want the sacred name, just do some deep breathing. I was listening to some of the other, even going, I'm not telling you it's going to heal you, but it will help you. And it'll help protect you.
But I know we're coming on to Easter. Do you just have a little thing about Easter that we usually...
Well, actually, we're going to have a little broadcast here probably from Sedona on Easter, so you can check with our website, seedsofenoch.org, and sign up for our Easter broadcast. But in terms of the message, it shows that we really are light beings. That's our message regarding Christ, that he actually transformed himself from the physical body to the light body. He was able to use that light energy to heal others. You know, we're able to do that, or like Mother Teresa, you know, protect yourself because she has spiritual work to do. We all have spiritual work to do, and really our mission is there. We need to stick to it and continue our life's mission and not be in fear of what's going on. A lot of the stuff we can do from home base, that's fine, that's safe, but continue the work. Don't be frustrated.
And what Desiree and I said, turn the metaphor around, because again, it doesn't have to be the finality. It doesn't have to be the doomsday scenario. It doesn't have to be the last extinction. It has to be the upliftment of understanding the deeper meaning of these ancient metaphors, that we are the avant-garde, and we are the ones as co-evolutionists who could decide how we can open the door to the blessings of the future.
And this is really the first real time that so many countries are involved in the same thing. And I think countries are really working together. Governments are working together, and other World Health Organizations.
This is a real time of planetary unity. It is not really the first time, and it's exciting that way, that we've all been focused on the same thought. You know, Ronald Reagan used to say, what if there was an alien invader? You know, that talk by him, wouldn't the world come together? Well, we have an invader. It's not alien. But, you know, this is...
alien in a sense.
But the real aliens are waiting for us to clean up our act. So as a planetary civilization, so we can come together, so we can speak with a unity of consciousness. And this, of course, is what our work has been over the last couple of years. But thank you for your time and sharing your love and your light and your openness, your optimism, and your higher spiritual knowledge.
And remember, God loves us, loves you, and so do we. The divine spark has a real special resonance in our work together, Alan. We thank you, and we bless the four corners of the world with brothers and sisters in Asia, brothers and sisters in the Pacific Islands, brothers and sisters in the tundra of Siberia and Canada, brothers and sisters in the happy cities of South Africa and Brazil, Argentina. We ask for blessings of unity. We say the four great amens. Amen, 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 and amen.
And use this time to study, pray, meditate, and quietude. And I think we'll get out of this.
Yeah, and let the dove of peace descend upon the planet. Thank you. Thank you both. It's Alan Steinfeld for New Realities, talking to Doctors JJ Hurtak, Dr. Desiree Hurtak, about this time of global transformation. We are in it, and we are going through it to awaken to a new world and new realities. So thank you for watching.